Quick note at the start of the video, unfortunately something was wrong with my computer at the time and it set my standard audio output to my monitor instead of my headphones, which meant that OBS used that as its output recording, which meant that I could hear Gweilo and could talk to him, but at the same time OBS didn't record, which means that the voice that you're going to hear in the video is the original voice from me and a recorded version of Gweilo that he went and sort of what's the opposite of pre-recorded. He recorded afterwards. He kind of did a voiceover, and it's noticeable in some places. I tried my best to sort of splice it together somehow, but yeah, hopefully it won't hinder your enjoyment too much. Hello and welcome back to the Reddit League show. This week we are in week 9. We are going to be looking at the results from South Africa as well as the games for the next map, which is going to be the UAE, which we'll talk about at the end. And today I'm joined by Gweilowizard. How are you doing today?
Hello.
Yep. All right. Then we'll start straight away with Reddit League Next, our first division of the day. And as you can see there, maybe not the best performance by G Papa this week, as Boris picks up his first win actually in Reddit League Next. Not that the wins matter for much more than Pride here, but a little bit of a nice result for him. Zekator and Bombadil close behind, also with some decent scores.
Yeah, looking good. Great. Congratulations to Boris on the win.
Yeah, they are really close. Probably, well, it doesn't decide anything other than, again, pride of who gets to finish first as the top 3 or move up into Division 5. But especially there in that third place, we have a very close battle with Bombadil down to Clemens. That now got separated a little bit, with Clemens having a pretty weak performance in South Africa, only 12k, unfortunately for him. But there's still 2 weeks to go, and especially with a remote world at the end in week 11, those 5k points can easily be made up. And yeah, definitely going to be some exciting stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, Random World's going to be a bit of a toss-up.
Yeah, so let's move on to Division 5B, and you might notice, well, first of all, we do have graphics again because Satomo got them working again, but I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but he changed the font. I quite like it personally, but let us know in the comments if you're a fan or not. And yeah, the results are here. I don't think there were any, I mean, there were some slight, well, I say that I don't think there were any surprises. 2 of our big competitors this season, number 1 and number 2, Danny Blondes and Mr. Swiss Snow, both losing their games against Anonono and Palena respectively.
Yeah, it's a bit surprising for them, but they have another week to make it up, another couple weeks. But great job to Arno. That's an excellent score on this seed. And likewise, even more to Penguin.
Yeah, he was in third anyway in the promotion playoff, but it definitely gives him a little bit more room, I suppose, because Penguin with a fantastic score of almost a 25k there, which I think is like the third best score on even the leaderboards of the map. So incredible performance from him. Yeah. I didn't either when playing this seed, and any others, obviously. Otherwise, he wouldn't be third in the leaderboards. But yeah, fantastic for him. So Palena really needed that win to kind of stay ahead of Penguin and keep that gap as we look at the table here. And that means Palena's still in third, now equal on points with Danny Blondes after that win against the direct competitor. And it all kind of got a little bit closer. Mr. Swiss Snow, first loss of the season. And now there's 2 weeks to go. I still think even down to Anonono, technically there's a little bit of a chance left that he might enter that race for those promotion spots.
Yeah, certainly a chance, although it's a bit of ground to make up. I think the top 3 or 4 are pretty constant.
Okay, soundbite on 18 points, so definitely he's still got a chance as well. Obviously, though, with his total score of 171k, maybe a little bit less so because he'd actually need to be clear of anyone, not equal on points, because with that total score, it's just not happening. So slightly worse position than Anonono, who would, for example, beat Palena in terms of total score if it comes down to it. So yeah, definitely interesting again. And, people like to always kind of just forget about the total score as a tiebreaker because it's like, well, what are the chances that I'm going to be equal on points to someone else in an important position where it makes a difference? But, more often than you'd think, yes. And yeah, at the bottom, it's pretty clear. I think Kukas obviously still has a theoretical chance, but he'd need wins in both of his remaining games, and with 1 win in 8 so far, that seems unlikely. And above him, you've got Cephalin and Corgi, who are very close together and will probably decide between themselves who is going to finish in that 10th place and who will have to fight in that relegation playoff game.
Yep, good luck to both of them.
Let's look. I mean, there is a red-carded player, so there's still 2 people who have a red-carded matchup to go. Let's see in this week who that will be, and it turns out it's Lajej who will have their red-carded game against Ouellette. Probably not the most, consequential one, as he is on 15 points. Probably unlikely to go either direction for him, but it's a nice break, I guess. Probably won't complain. I don't think the UAE is a lot of people's favorite country, I would imagine, in Geoguessr. So I'm sure he won't be too mad about that. Very interesting matchup, though. Right at the bottom of this, Plena against Penguin. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that'll be the one to watch. Basically everything to play for with both of them. With Plena looking to either snatch a promotion spot or that playoff spot, and Penguin in a similar boat. I think Penguin coming off of this week's performance has a really good shot, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Definitely somewhat practicable to an extent where you can become reasonably good at it. But we'll talk about the map at the end. And yeah, definitely, as you said, a very crucial game. Obviously, we'll look next week at who they'll play in the last week. I don't have it on hand. But that can be very, very decisive, especially for Palena. I mean, for Penguin, if he wins, he's close again. That's very good. But for Palena, if he wins, then he's suddenly more than 3 points ahead of Penguin, which means he's technically not really, in any danger anymore of dropping out of those top 3. Obviously, there'd still be, the fight for the first spot and the automatic promotion to go. But the danger would, become minimal. Other games... We've got Anono Trebliha, kind of mid-table game. Anono technically still, as we said before, with a chance. Danny against Corgi should be a relatively easy win looking at the table for Danny, but who knows? And yeah, Cephalin against Mr. Swiss Snow and Soundbite against Cookers. Yeah, interesting games for sure, but all kind of games where you have a clear favorite. And it's mostly just a Palena Penguin game that's a bit of a toss-up at this point. But obviously, as always, upsets can happen.
For sure.
All right, so let's look over at the results from the other side of Division 5. And you can see here, no one really coming close to that score of Penguin from Division 5B. But still some pretty good scores. Pikatost, especially good with 24.6k. Very unfortunate for Damir, who had the second best score in the division, but unfortunately going up against Pikatost, only going to be rewarded with 1 point for it. On the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, Upfloxseed, pretty... Well, it's a nightmare, isn't it? With less than 10k there. Never had a real chance there against Klimu, probably after like round 2 or 3 anyway, and maybe that's why he just kind of threw it away and gave up. Obviously, as we talked about before with Division 5B, total score is important potentially, so maybe not the best decision, but it is what it is. And also Keith with another victory. He's kind of been getting a bit better, maybe just getting a bit luckier on the side of the matchups. Not the most impressive score, but a win yet again for Keith there.
Yeah, congratulations to him. I think the situation with Upfloxseed is a common one, but one you can't really do anything about at the moment. You just kind of get frustrated and give up. But more chances, so good luck to him. Yeah, he's playing for... I guess he has a chance to make the promotion spots if he's lucky.
Yeah, certainly. As we'll look at the table, and because of that matchup, as well as the Pikatos-Damir matchup, it's just gotten ridiculously close. Of course, here, again, Piquet is on 17 points and not the 14 points that it says here. We'll get that right, actually. But yeah, it's insane. I mean, Czech is pretty much guaranteed his first place. There's nothing that's going to happen with him. Is it technically possible? I guess technically it might be, depending on the matchups. Yeah, 2 perfect scores, about a 15k total score swing, and we need Clemu and Piquet not to play against each other, which I don't know if they have already or not. But yes, it's very unlikely to happen. So I think we can congratulate Jack on his promotion already. But the closeness of the table behind that is ridiculous. 17 points for Clemu in second, 12 points for Hordy in 10th. Pretty much even Hordy in 10th still has a chance of promotion. Obviously, with so many people ahead of him, it's only 5 points. But, everyone would essentially have to drop points, which just isn't possible because some people play against each other. But in theory, it might be a thing that might be able to happen. I think realistically, we're looking down to around Apfeloxid in 7th for the people who can still make that promotion spot happen.
Yeah, I agreed. I think, technically possible for Jordy, but that's a lot of points to make up in 2 games. But everyone with 15 and up definitely has a shot. It's a lot to play for this late in the season, so it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I talked about the one side of it. Of course, the other side is a thing as well. Even someone like Biquet or Clemu could fall down to 10th, as unlikely as it may seem at the moment. And Keith, we mentioned it, another pretty good result for him, but still on 8 points, it's looking relatively unlikely that he'll manage to make his way out of there. Still, I think for both Keith and Strassel, while it seems like they, aren't quite the level of the other players in this Division 5A, I still think they both had very decent showings, and they weren't far off yet, as it was just that slight little gap at the end there that couldn't quite get to the same results consistently as the others. All right, then let's look at their games for next week. And Clemu and Biquet aren't playing against each other yet, at least. Clemu against Paranoid Android and Biquet against Greasy. Definitely both games that on paper look doable. Keith, unfortunately, maybe his luck of his run of good luck coming to an end there playing against Jack. But maybe on the other hand, maybe Jack will take it easy. I don't think he will, but maybe, and leave a possibility there for Keith. And Strassel as well. I think he's pretty much relegated at this point. And a game against Mr. Fish also doesn't sound like the easiest of tasks. But we have a Spanish derby here, Hordy against Picatost. That might actually be the first Spanish derby in Reddit League history.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, I know Topodic was here in Season 1, but I don't think there was any other Spaniard in Division 1. And Hordy was here last season, but I think he was in Reddit League next, and Picatost only joined this season. And I don't think there are any other Spaniards in Reddit League, or have been. Not that I can think of right now, at least. I hope I'm not forgetting someone. I might be, but let's hope not. So it should be the first one. It's a pretty interesting one.
For sure.
And technically, Clemu and Biquet could both overtake Jake with a perfect score in both weeks. Well, maybe not as safe for Jack then. I think any possibility that requires a perfect score on a remote world should just be immediately discounted. But we'll leave that for next week. Maybe it'll happen. All right.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, in UA it can be possible. There's a lot of unpinpointable stuff generally in the UA, but we're playing an intersection guesser map. So it's definitely still possible. It won't be easy. But, it's definitely easier than on a remote world, where the current number 1 high score on the map, after about, I think, 4,000 people have played the map, I checked earlier today, the current number 1 place, the fastest 25k ever on that map, is at 35 minutes. So that's probably not happening. But who knows? We've got some great players here, and maybe they'll make it happen. That would be nice to see. But for now, let's move on into Division 4B, and yes, the font is smaller here. Don't ask me why. So Tomo has just decided he'll do that, and that is, well, if the numbers are correct, honestly, I don't care, but we'll see. Yeah, it is the last week. It was the last week for Division 4 with their 10-player divisions. And these were the results. I think for a few players, the week didn't really matter anymore. I think Sheldon had nothing really to play for. I think Jake was looking at best at an outside chance. But the really important matchup here was Mikpiet winning against Ollie.
Yeah, that's definitely the one to look for. He's able to snatch his promotion playoff slot right there. So I looked at the round. Round 2 was by far the hardest. And I think that was the important round for the McPeat and Ollie match.
Was that the location like kind of south-ish on the coast?
No, that
or am I misremembering that?
That was the one there's a flat desert road in Northern Cape.
Okay, fair. Oh, that one. Yeah, I remember. I remember. I did horribly on that whole seed. So it kind of fades away a bit in my mind. I kind of removed that. But of course, as well, the other important game, Pashtetli, deciding the fight for the first place and the automatic promotion spot against Solar Sensei with an amazing score as well. So definitely deserved best score of the week, and we'll take that first spot.
Score.
Oh, never mind. Actually, I completely missed on Jeune Hérisson with a 23.8k score there. So even better. Yeah, Jeune Hérisson hasn't been having the greatest of seasons and still will end up in the relegation playoff game, but definitely a little bit of a light there for him. Maybe some, good motivation, good morale going into that playoff game. That we'll talk about. We'll talk about all the playoff games in week 11, but we will take a quick look at the table. And as you can see there, it was Pashtetli taking the top with 22 points out of Solar Sensei, who will go into the promotion playoff alongside Mikpiet. They'll be playing against the promotion playoff candidates of Division 4A, so it'll be second of Division 4B against third of Division 4A and vice versa. And yeah, Mikpiet just about sneaking into third place there. We've talked about it before. Total score, it has become relevant here. Just about 7,000 points, not quite, for Mikpiet here ahead of Ollie.
Yep, like we said, it's very, very important. Definitely don't want to slack on the weeks you have easy games, like red card games and that sort of thing. I think that's the only thing here to decided by that, though. Yeah, everyone else looks pretty on parity.
Yep, very well ordered actually. Mostly the total score, at least in the non-relegation spots, at least if you kind of ignore Jeune Hérisson and Laban Greb, who had a very unfortunate season there with a total score that would have been enough for 6th place, but not quite getting it in the right game weeks, and will unfortunately get relegated to Division 5. But he's gotten out of there in the past, so maybe he can do it again. And it was actually fairly close for Sheldon at the end. Obviously, would have needed a perfect score from Jeune Hérisson, but if he could have pulled it off, if maybe the seed would have been a bit kinder in that regard, could have made that 7th place happen. But nice for both Jeune Hérisson. I think Dromi as well won on the last match day, so they'll go into the relegation playoff with a bit of a better feeling.
For sure, and that counts a lot. How you're feeling is a lot of how you play.
Yeah. So let's look at the other side at, that's the wrong button, at Division 4A. And their results in South Africa, and at the top, some more expected results. I mean, expected is maybe a bit of a strong word, but, the kind of 50-50 matchup, I'd call it, between Hexalt and Lunacy goes to Hexalt. And the biggest surprise here probably is that Zotomo managed to beat Carp and remove him from the promotion playoff positions.
Yeah, it's exciting for Zotomo. Yeah, the round with Hexalt and Lunacy that was decided on the flat desert road we were talking about earlier. It's just a better hedge guess from Hexalt there. Additionally, Wigglelock is unfortunately not able to win, but still in a good spot in the table. I guess we'll see in a second. And then Hexalt's able to, I guess we'll save it for the table, but that win for Hexalt is pretty crucial.
Yep. Yeah, as we look at the table, it's actually a pretty incredible finish here. As we saw, Lunacy did lose his game against Hexalt, but the bonus point that he just about snuck into, it was really close for that bonus point, actually. He had it wasn't super close. I think he had he had the 4th best score, but only How many is it? Only 300 points less would have given him the 6th best score and no bonus point. And without that bonus point, he wouldn't have been in 3rd place. And even ignoring that bonus point, 300 points in Geoguessr points itself also wouldn't have ended with him in 3rd place, as the total score difference between him and Xander is incredibly close, just 213 points between the two of them.
Yeah, that's incredibly narrow. That's really exciting.
Yep, it is.
Crucial rounds in this game for Lunacy then.
Yeah, and even behind him, Sepkir's on the same points as well, just 6,000 points behind in total score. He's going to be kicking himself for his weak start to the season. I think he mentioned something about the first couple of weeks where I can't remember what he said, maybe it was like bad internet, whatever. I think he had some trouble in the first few weeks. And the difference there, just those 6,000 points, could have totally seen him in those promotion playoff spots as well. So again, crazy finish in this division. So Tomo with that win against Karp, that unexpected victory, overtaking Heyemine and managing to make his way out of the relegation playoff spots. And we didn't even mention Danny J, who managed to win against Hedegmi, which is a pretty nice win for him as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't change anything. He was relegated last week already, but still, in his debut season, another win. Pretty nice to see.
Yeah, for sure. It always feels good to take some blood as you leave. I think you've said everything that I find important here.
Definitely. That means now that we'll have the playoff games of Solar against Lunacy and Wakelock against Mikpiet. We'll go more into those later in week 11. But just to tell you, these are what we'll be seeing in week 12, and they're very exciting matchups for sure as well, where both are pretty open, I think. Especially Lunacy and Solar is a match I'm very much looking forward to. And yeah, let's move on to Division 3 then, who also have still 2 weeks to go after this one, but the results in this week in South Africa were fairly close throughout. It seemed like a pretty difficult seed looking at those scores. Diesel with the best score, but him and Steal the Snick the only players over 20k there.
Yeah, so this was a pretty hard seed. Both rounds 4 and 5 both had almost zero info, or at least none that I could find. Oh, was it you?
I did, is basically what I'm trying to get at. Yes, I was. The round five was basically around kind of south of Johannesburg, somewhere in that area, where there was no available information, like any written information. And I got within about, I think, 700 meters just based off of landscape and road angles, which was, I consider that probably my best Geoguessr guess ever. So I'd like to gloat about it for a few seconds.
That's
Thank
absurd.
you.
Absurd.
Yeah, flips the message me later, like, what did you find? And I was like, nothing. But
jeez.
yeah, that would have left you... Well, you would have beaten Pastek or Antoine Pilot. Yep. And I think overall, not the most surprising results here. I think, there's some pretty even games that you would have expected could go either way, like Nakiro against Closed, which was fairly close. And Freckles, again, keeps going with his run after, I think, 7 weeks without a win to start with. I think it's his second win in a row. And looking at the table, it's his third win actually in a row after 6 weeks of losses in a row. Means he for the first time leaves 12th and last position and slowly starts to climb his way out of the relegation spots.
Yeah, that's a good run for Freckles. It's pretty cool to have that happen this late. I wanted to point out that Closed in Nakiro was decided on just at round 5, the one you were talking about. So it's
very, very important. Very important for Nakiro as well there, as that keeps him within range of the promotion playoff spots. If he had lost that would have been pretty much his chances over. Now he's just 1 point behind Paulinho, who also, with that win, stays up there and kind of moves past closed into those promotion playoff spots. And at the top with Diesel and Steel the Snick winning, it's still fairly close. It could still, I'd say with 2 weeks left, I think probably Diesel and Steel the Snick won't drop out of the promotion spots, but they could definitely drop down as low as 4th, I'd say, and maybe not get their automatic spot. And
yeah, I think that's the worst that can happen.
Yeah, and I think on the other side, I think up to Pastek, 7th place still has a chance of maybe making it to top 4. And on the relegation part, I think Pastek should be fairly safe. So it's from Tante down to Hugo from 8th to 12th who are going to be fighting for, well, essentially that one spot where they don't have to worry about relegation in 8th.
Yeah, that's the coveted spot. If someone like Freckles can make it if he continues winning, that'd be a really exciting end. But we'll have to see what happens. I think it's a little bit beyond the hope for maybe Hugo, although it's still possible.
Let's first look at the fixtures for them next week, as I'm clicking on the wrong button again, as I always do. There we go. We have, again, very interesting matchups. Paulinho against Flipster, 3rd against 4th. Very crucial game for the promotion playoffs. Apart from that, I would say Naku Steal the Snick as well. Similar situation there. Pretty close in those playoffs. Could have some big implications. And for the bottom of the table, there'll be pretty hard matchups for Antoine Pilote and Freckles, who will be up against, well, for Antoine Pilote up against Pastek, maybe a little bit of a chance there. But Freckles against Diesel is pretty exciting. And then, of course, Tante against Hugo is the relegation matchup here that will decide a lot on that bottom half of the table.
Yeah, I think those are the ones to look out for. I'm looking forward to Paulinho and Flipster especially. I looked at the matches for the week after next week, and there's no easy way out for Fogger and Hugo. So I think this is Hugo's only chance, and Fogger might have his luck run out. But we'll have to see.
Then let's move over to Division 2. And we've got Verdok and WTF obviously picking up their 3 wins against Armor and Aston's red cards. And other than that, a great score from Ordbocker, 23k, who was unfortunately just a little too high on those points for you. You still had a pretty good game, though, for best score.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. So the seed was a pretty rude one. We had 3 rounds that were really close to each other, 2 of which were on the same road, about 10 kilometers apart. And then the important round, these were all not super difficult, but the important round was round 4, which is a mountain road in central Cape province with no information. And that's what almost every match here came down to. Ordbocker just had a better guess than I did. He somehow managed to get 52 kilometers away, and I was a couple hundred. And that was all there was to it. But I'm really happy with my score.
Yeah, that's a really that's a really tough one because there isn't really much in there in the central southwestern part of South Africa. So it's it's a really risky hedge if you're trying to just make a guess. So you kind of need to be confident on it, I suppose. And there was actually, wait, let me just check. Yeah, Naku 5k that, by the way, which is pretty insane. I know it's not his seed, but that was a pretty good round from him. He failed on another round, which means he's not up there with Ordbocker in terms of score on that. But yeah, so very difficult round that for sure. I don't think anyone else did particularly well on it.
Nope.
Other than that, Bubat beating Max, kind of a 50-50 matchup to go into it. Same kind of with Stock and Renata, and Samo also coming out on top against Cameron, who I think though will also pick up a bonus point for his score.
Yeah, so with Renata's match, that's a hard loss from round 1, and it's her first loss this season, which is pretty impressive. So now she has to fight to keep her promotion spot. She's still in a very good spot, but yeah.
So let's look at that table. As you pointed out, her first loss means her lead is going to get a little bit slimmer, just 1 point ahead of Verdok and Ordbocker. And Stock now well, actually dropping down even with the win there. I don't know how that happened. Wrong. That must be wrong somehow. I think Zotomo just messed up the arrows there a little bit. I don't think there is anyone moving because Stock and Ordbok are both 1, and that doesn't make sense with a point gap of 2. That could have been a legitimate movement. So I think, yeah, everything stays as it is here. Max also should be on 13 points instead of 17 while we're pointing out mistakes. So essentially at the top, still with 2 games to go, very, very close down to Bootbot, at least for the promotion fight. I think Bootbot probably not with a chance for top 2. I'd say those will be decided between the current top 5 at most. And then at the bottom, essentially with 2 red cards, there will be no relegation. But it'll be, again, kind of a fight for pride between U4, Max, you, and Cameron and WTF on who will finish at least a little bit ahead of the others.
Yep, yeah, it's worth fighting for. At least I'm going to keep fighting for it. But yeah, that's all it's in scope. It's a bit of a shame with the 2 red cards. It really, I'll still have fun, but it takes a little bit of fun out of it because there's less to play for.
Yeah.
But I'll still have fun with the last 2 rounds.
Yeah, red cards always suck, but unfortunately some people just don't play occasionally. But yeah, I also noticed how I mentioned Max's points being wrong. Obviously his total score and score differences are as well. They just seem to be copied from Bootbot ahead of him. He's at 190k roughly in terms of total score at a 6k score difference, just for the record here. And yeah, let's see who they'll play against next week. And it's Samo T and Max with a free red card matchup. So for Max, as we established, pretty, inconsequential. But for Samo, that's a pretty important, 3 points, as Ordbok and Stock going to be playing against each other just ahead of him on the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's both are playing for quite a bit.
Yep. Technically, Stock and Ordbok could draw with a perfect score. So it's not guaranteed, but it's very likely at this stage.
Yeah, so I think Renata's probably safe with that matchup maybe next week. I have a bit of a hard one versus Worduk, unfortunately.
Renata against WTF. Hopefully WTF will try and maybe get another couple wins here. I don't know if he's going to be practicing too much for it. And you against Verdok, what do you think? Any chances?
Yeah, like I said, it'll be difficult. Verdok's playing really well this semester or this season, but I'll
definitely true.
Play as hard as I normally do.
All right, then let us move on to Division 1. And I was just having a horrid time with this. It all went pretty well until round 3 when it was over. Very difficult round in round 1, went very well. Round 2 was a round with no information whatsoever, and my region guess wasn't bad. And round 3 was fairly easy. And then in round 4, I didn't find much. I found a small town name and was deciding between 2 regions, the right one and the wrong one. And, the genius that I am, I of course chose the wrong one. And then in round 5, I got very unlucky with the directions I took and didn't get to a great sign that would have basically told you exactly where it is, which means that essentially I lost about 9k on those 2 rounds. That would have made me win this seed, but that's just the way it is. I lost against Mason, who had a pretty good score, of course. I think the 4th highest there. It's just unfortunate. And of course, as it always does, all the other matches that could have saved me obviously didn't go my way, because why would they? With Shumi winning against Toto Radio and what was the other one that could have? I think that was the only one that mattered, actually. So, yeah. Other than that, Pluki winning against Barry keeps him in the top 4. Barry had already pretty much secured that anyway. And Basement beating Mr. Blue also moves him up there, with Mr. Blue dropping out of those, as we look at the table quickly for you to see there.
Go back.
Okay, I'll go back.
Yeah, so just it was a really nasty seed, like you pointed out. Rounds 2 and 4 were pretty difficult. I still don't know how few people got round 4. They didn't 5k, but they got really close. So the Pluki versus BW versus Barry was come down to round 2, and Pluki's able to make the playoffs. I guess we'll talk about that in a second. Like you said, Baseman's able to beat Mr. Blue. It came from struggles in every round of the last for Mr. Blue. And then Nimriv had struggles in rounds 1 and 5, and Basil's able to beat him and make the playoffs. Yeah, Ototo's loss comes from rounds 1 and 5, so just the same one, round 5 being the same one that you had trouble with.
Yeah.
And Shumi is able to stay in the main table.
Yeah. Round 1 was a pretty difficult one. It was actually very interesting in the city of George, which is like a very big city of like, I don't know, 100,000, 150,000 people, I think. And I did not expect it to look like that. I'd recommend people to just like take a look at some of the, maybe suburbs of George. They really do not look like a big city should look, in my opinion, or how I would expect it to look. And I basically just got it from A, process of elimination, and B, seeing the ocean to the south at some point. So it was like, okay, it's still a city and there's ocean to the south, and it's like, okay, this clearly does not look like, and so forth, and got it by that. But yeah, pretty interesting round.
Yeah, it was a weird one.
Yeah, so let's now look at that table. And yeah, unfortunately, I do end up in the relegation playoff spot against Nimriv, which is going to be an interesting game for sure. I'd rather not be in the relegation playoff spot, but it's going to be interesting, and I'm looking forward to playing it, hopefully to do well. Shumi and Mason saved themselves in that last week and finish ahead of me. And of course, as we mentioned at the top, Baseman sneaking into 4th place ahead of Mr. Blue.
Yep. Yeah, congrats to Baseman for making it to the playoff. He's got to be really excited. It really sucks for you, though. You always have...
I mean, this time my total score wasn't actually that great. I still... Yeah, it wasn't bad, but I'd still say... This time it was more bad luck in the games themselves rather than with the matchups. I distinctively remember the Virginia rounds where Pluki did really badly and I just did worse. Where I could have easily and should have won that game, and the South Africa one as well. I think there was other stuff as well. Let me actually look at the maps that were... Yeah, the Argentina one was very unfortunate. It was just, a very unfortunate season. I think the one location per city / town was also... all right, yeah. I'll try and... Maybe I used up all of my bad luck in the regular season, and I'll have good luck for the relegation playoff. One can
hope so.
Also a lot more aces, so if we do get some pinpointable stuff, maybe a little bit of an advantage there, as of course in the playoffs every point matters. If it's 25k against 24,999, that's still a win, not a draw. So if it does come down to that, maybe a little bit of an advantage there.
Good luck to you, and good luck to everyone else in the playoffs.
Yeah, thank you. And let's look at our last thing for today. The map, intersection Geoguessr United Arab Emirates. 10k plus locations, obviously locations on intersections, as always, intersections found on OpenStreetMap, so they don't necessarily have to be intersections on Google Maps too. Sometimes they aren't, most of the time they are, but you can't 100% rely on it. Have you practiced UAE?
No, I haven't started yet. I recall it being a lot of flat desert roads, but I guess with intersections it's not as bad. You can usually find some information, although it's not always helpful. I remember the signage being somewhat unreliable. Yeah,
I think the intersection Geoguessr map especially is a little bit easier than any ordinary UAE map would be, because a lot of those highways through the middle of the country don't have any intersections, so there's not really any locations there. Which means that obviously with the size of Dubai and Sharjah, you're gonna have a lot of locations around there, and so you do well in looking at those cities and maybe being able to at least somewhat navigate them and knowing your way around them. Obviously, you can still have your random location elsewhere in the country, and you should try not to get tricked by those, as they can sometimes be pretty tricky to solve. You'll be able to tell if it's not Dubai or Sharjah, but beyond that can be quite difficult, as you said. Especially, I think the more remote kind of towns, um, and the smaller ones especially can sometimes be pretty tricky to find like a town name, and they can also be a little bit unreliable in writing of it being the exact same on the map and on stuff you find that can differ a little bit. So those can be pretty tricky. And if it is a seed with like 5 locations in Dubai, then that in and of itself is also going to be challenging, because that means you basically can't afford any mistakes. And yeah, could make for some very interesting matchups for sure.
Do you remember how easy it is if you're in a city to find where you are?
It depends. There's a lot of like, you have these highways through Dubai and Sharjah, for example, that are like called D45 or something, which means you're in Dubai on the road 45, or S for Sharjah. And usually those aren't too difficult to find, but there's a lot of suburban locations around there that can be very, very difficult, because you'll see plenty of signs that say Dubai, Sharjah, whatever. But finding the exact place can be very, very hard, because especially in those locations you usually don't really get street names either. So it's kind of like trying to work with road angles, kind of the layouts as a whole. And that can be very tough. I think downtown locations are usually not that bad, especially compared to other countries. Especially with a longer time limit, though. For something like Division 2, maybe with 3 minutes 20, I think it's possible that you can kind of just waste a little bit of time and maybe get into an unfortunate situation where you just spent more time than you should have looking for something on the map, maybe, and then just kind of run out of time. That's something that sometimes happens to me as well, where you're like, this is an easy round, I should find it, but you just don't. And I think that those rounds can happen. But the thing is, the UAE is fairly big. It's not huge, but if you're in Dubai or Sharjah, you're not going to drop too many points if you're a little bit off. So, if you've got some more difficult rounds in the seed as well, a round like that shouldn't be decisive. But of course, if all rounds are like that, then, would still do well to get those rounds. All right. I guess that will do it for today. Thanks everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys again next time. Until then, bye.
Goodbye. I definitely did not do that well. I don't remember. I did pretty poorly.